Hello again, and today we're going to talk about a comment I got on one of my videos about my collection, and also on consolidating that collection and where I might go from here, and just some general thoughts on collecting. And as usual, I'm going for no expense spent graphics, and I divided this page up into three sections because I want to divide my collection up into three sections. And the top one is going to be keepers. So we'll put that there, keep. A bit difficult to do when you're trying to reach over. These are sort of not sure, so that could be sort of not sure. Difficult to do when you're trying to film at the same time. And at the bottom we've got sell. So we might keep them, but more likely they're going to go. And for those of you who haven't yet seen my videos about my collection, we'll bring them in one by one. So here's my Zenith Pilot chronograph. Then we've got another chronograph, which is my Omega Speedmaster First Omega in Space. And next up we've got my Rolex Milgauss Z Blue. I do like that colour. Next up is my general sort of everyday watch, which is this Tag Carrera chronograph, caliber 16. And next up is another Rolex, my ceramic Submariner date. And last but by no means least, my Rolex Daytona chronograph. Oh, and I mustn't forget the watch I'm wearing, which is another Zenith, my Pilot chronograph, so we'll pop him in there as well. And I'm also keeping one more watch at the moment. This is the recently repaired Rolex Explorer 1, but that one's not mine. But that one's not mine, so we'll move him out of the way for now. So first off, the comment I got about my collection from a YouTube video was that it's unbalanced, that I really need a GMT and ideally some vintage watches too. And my reply to that statement is, no, I don't need a GMT. I don't like GMTs, so why not would I buy one? And when it comes to vintage pieces, yes, I would like to have some vintage pieces. I have been on the lookout for a while now for a really minty Zenith Rainbow flyback, which I've not found yet, at least at the right price. But that's not because I want to balance my collection, it's because I want that particular watch. And one thing that does annoy me a little bit about the watch collecting world is when people state, you need to have this, you need to have that. You need a GMT, you need a dress watch, blah blah blah. No you don't. The only thing I need to do is to buy watches that I like, and if that ends up being all chronographs, that's because I like chronographs and that's what I want to do. So if you're building up a collection, what I would say is forget about what other people say, forget about having a balanced collection, having to have this and having to have that. Buy what you like. After all, it's your collection, it's your money, so buy what you like. And now on to my next point. I do feel perhaps that 7 watches is about 1 or 2 too many for me, and since next year I am considering buying a more expensive watch, possibly a rose gold Rolex, possibly a rose gold Daytona in particular. I have been thinking that maybe I should consolidate my collection. Not because I need the money to buy a rose gold Daytona, but just because I think maybe I've got too many and it's all getting a little bit out of hand. Which then of course brings up the issue of how do you decide which ones to keep, which ones to sell, which ones I'm not sure about, and it's not that easy. There are several different methods that you could use. The obvious one is to say, well, just keep the ones you like the best and sell the ones that perhaps you're not wearing. The most obvious method is to say, just keep the watches you like best and sell the ones you're not wearing. But I think it's not so simple, because let's say this is my favourite watch, this Daytona, and looking ahead I want to buy a rose gold version of this particular watch. And therefore, does it make sense to keep this stainless steel Daytona at the same time as I'm buying a rose gold Daytona? I'm not so sure. And of course, another aspect we need to consider is the value of these watches. Now in my case, I'm probably quite fortunate in that next year I won't need to sell any of these to buy my next watch. But I know that a lot of folks aren't in that position, so they have to sell 1 or 2 watches before they can afford to buy the next one. In which case it may make sense to sell the most valuable watches, which in my case would be the Submariner and the Daytona, which would give me the money to buy the watch I want next. Another point to make is that these 2 watches in particular haven't depreciated hardly at all. In fact, this one may well be worth more than I pay for it, and this one's not far off. So if I came to sell it, I wouldn't have to feel so bad about losing money in depreciation. And that would make selling these watches a lot easier, psychologically at least. Whereas, of course, if I came to sell, I don't know, my 2 Zeniths, despite the fact that I love these watches, I do appreciate that they both lost quite a fair bit of money since I bought them. This one I got in 2010, this one was 2011. This was, I think, £4,800. This one I got for £4 after a lot of haggling, and I suspect each one of them, and I suspect I could maybe get 3,000 for each on a good day, and less if I did a part exchange with a dealer. So it may be, from a sort of emotional point of view, it's easier for me to keep these watches rather than face crystallising those losses. So therefore, I guess it depends on the reasons for having to consolidate your collection. If it's just to get some money in, then clearly the Submariner and the Daytona would be the two I'd want to sell first. After that, it would be probably the Milgauss, and after that, I'm not sure, probably the Speedmaster, then the two Zeniths, and last of all, the poor old Carrera, which isn't worth that much these days, maybe 1,000 on a good day. But that approach can lead to some quite odd results, because it means the watch you sort of value least of all, such as my Carrera, ends up being a keeper, whereas the watch you like best ends up being the seller. So when it comes to consolidating a collection, it's not so easy. So a different approach would be to sell the ones you like least or you wear least, and keep the ones you like best and wear the most. So if we take that approach with my collection, then the Carrera still stays because I wear it an awful lot. It's like my beta, because it's my default beta, so that'll stay. Obviously my Daytona will stay because I love that watch, as would my two Zeniths. Yeah, I like those two the best. I also like the Milgauss, that's my latest watch, so that'll have to be a keeper too. Which leaves me with the Submariner and the Speedmaster First on Ring of Space as possible sellers. So when you consolidate a collection like this, it's not easy, because I am quite attached to all of these watches. I mean, this particular watch, my Submariner, it's been with me to the Bordeaux in the south of France, it's been to America, we've had a few little adventures together, because it's my kind of holiday going away watch. Strange enough, I'm not actually wearing this Speedmaster that much these days. I'm not sure why. It's not because it's hand wound, I don't think, because winding it is not a problem. It's something I quite like doing, in fact. No, I think the reason why I don't wear it that much is because it's quite similar to my Zenith Pilot chronograph, which is a bit bigger, has better lume and also a date. And dare I say it, it also has a better movement. So when I'm looking to wear a watch like the Speedmaster, I tend to go for the Palace instead. Which isn't to say I don't like the Speedmaster First on Ring of Space. I do. I mean, I bought the damn thing. It's just that at the moment I'm not wearing it too much. Although, in a strange parallel, a few months after I bought my Pilot, the same thing happened. I just didn't wear it that much for about 6 months. Until one day I thought, oh, I've not worn it for a long time, I better wear it, give it some use. And after that I started wearing it a lot more. So when you have a collection of 5 or 6 watches, these things do happen. You do kind of get bored with one, put it away for a while, and then bring it back out again and fall in love with it again. I don't think that's an issue, really. And finally, another method that I quite like to use is a kind of devil take the hindmost, where we do a little mind experiment where we say, well, okay, you have to get rid of one. What would it be? And I'd say at the moment, it would be my Speedmaster. So that would definitely be a sell. And then we'd repeat the experiment. We say, okay, that's gone. We'll move him out of the way as a sell. What would be the next watch to go? And at the moment, I would say it would be, and now it's getting a bit more difficult, I would say it would have to be, so the next watch to go would have to be my Carrera. It's become my default beta, sadly, and since I've just ordered a cheap beta, I don't think I'd be wearing this one too much. I don't think I'll be wearing this one too much, so that one would have to go. So that would be in the sell category, which leaves us with these 5 watches. Ooh, now it's getting difficult. Now, and having thought about it for a long time, I can't decide, so I'm sorry, but they're all going to be keepers. So they'll all be keepers. So the Sub can stay, the Milgauss can stay, the Daytona can stay, and the 2 Zeniths can stay. And if that means I'm going to have a collection of 6, 7, 8 watches, then so be it, because I can't face selling them unless I absolutely had to. So there's a few different ways of approaching the consolidation of a collection. I'd like to know how you managed to consolidate your collection if you've had to do it, and what approach you took. Oh, and I'm sorry the light in here is so dark. The sun's just gone in before I started to film, so there's not much I can do about that. Anyway, thanks for watching and cheers.